Don't laugh. Hello, we're back with a new episode of Translating Love with me, Woifi.
Of translating love?
Translating Love with me, Woifi.
And Dani.
Bickering Dani. As
Bickering Dani.
Yeah, Bickering Dani.
As we all know.
As we all call her. Like to call her. Bickering.
And Farts McGee Wolfgang.
You know,
as we all know and love him. We're not going to talk about poop now.
No, but you know, farting is a natural body function, and
yeah.
farting is actually good, like to a certain extent, obviously. But farting is good because it tells you
it releases gas.
That your body function properly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
it is good.
Yeah. I would be concerned if you're not farting.
It's been 4 years together, and I'm just now starting to slowly get comfortable farting in front of you.
Yeah, and I really don't like it.
What's really annoying is that probably since 6 months in, he's been farting in front of me, gradually more and more comfortably. Now it's just like he doesn't give a shit. And now he makes a production out of it. So now when he has a really good fart, he might just like stand up and lift his leg and fart really loud. It's a production. Also, and it's just normal now.
I think I didn't wait 6 months. I think I didn't even wait 3 months.
Probably not. Probably not. But it has gotten gradually more comfortable.
Yeah.
But he's allowed to do all of that and be that obnoxious. And sometimes I say nothing. It's gotten to the point where I don't even look at him when he farts anymore. But if I fart, which is rare in front of you, if I fart, it's always a question. It's always, hey, what was that? What wasn't this?
What did you just, like when I come back into the room?
That.
When I came back into the room and I was like, wait, did you just fart?
Yeah, but that's when I fart when you left the room. I'm talking about when I actually fart with you in the room. Yeah. And it's like, what was that? Did you just fart? Or you're gross. So he fart shames me, and I don't fart shame him.
Yeah.
And then it makes me more self-conscious, and I don't want to fart anymore in front of you.
No, but everyone should fart.
But here you say it's healthy. It's a good thing to do.
Good thing. You should not hold it in.
But then don't fart shame me, and then I won't hold it in.
Sorry, I will stop fart shaming.
And that's what this podcast episode is about.
Yeah, it was the fart shaming topic.
It's not.
No.
We're already way off topic.
We
haven't even started.
We haven't even started yet. But yeah, welcome back to a new episode of your
favorite
podcast. Podcast. It's a popular podcast. To your favorite podcast, Translating Love with us, your favorite hosts, co-hosts, and just wise people. And we have to just quickly address a little thing, because happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. We both had a birthday yesterday, and yes, we're
sharing a birthday.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with our birthdays, we share a birthday, and it's the 31st of August.
Yep. He's 1 year older, and I'm
30 now.
Young.
I'm 30 now, and she's 29. And it's dawning on me.
Like it's not.
It's a little bit dawning on me. Yesterday was super chill and fun, but today it dawned on me.
Why is it dawning?
I don't know.
It's just a number.
I know it's just a number, but it's still it's the thing is it's a big accomplishment. And I feel grateful for being 30 and for being healthy and being able to being alive.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not something that is just a given. Because a lot of people die before 30. A lot of people have severe illnesses and don't know if they can even get to 30. Accidents, of course, and stuff like that. So I'm really grateful. And that, by that thing alone, that was like a little thinking for me. And I was like, we could totally do like the one podcast we have on our list of podcasts we want to do, or I want to do. And that's the death topic.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is death talking.
This Death talking.
We invited Death today. He will be our by Zoom. Obviously, he's not in the room.
But this is a disclaimer. This topic gives me pretty severe anxiety, which is why I avoid it as much as I possibly can. I avoid talking about death, and it is legitimately because I think it is something, and I've thought this for years and years and years, that I should actually talk to a therapist about, because it's so bad that
Yeah.
sometimes if I go too deep into a little bit of talking about death is okay, but if I go too deep into it, I have multiple times gone almost into a panic attack.
That's why we invited the Grim Reaper, and he will give us a little insight into his work and why he does it and how it feels for him. And also how
No, but my
the many...
disclaimer was to say that if I sound super uncomfortable at some, like now I'm all cheery and fine, but now that we're actually starting it, my heart rate has already gone up, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, but again, that's why we invited the Grim Reaper.
It's not.
He's not with us in the room. He's via Zoom.
He's not.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
Yes.
Be serious.
Danielle, he uses Zoom. He knows how to use Zoom. God damn it. No, but yeah, death is our episode topic today.
Our podcast episode.
Yeah. But first, before we go into the topic, I just want to say thank you to everyone who still listens to the podcast. I know it's not that many, but it's also not that few.
Don't say that. They don't know that. You could say
It's so many people.
so many people were at the top of the charts.
Yeah, no. The hardest thing is the thing is we have a really solid listener base.
We do.
But the harder thing is to like reach new people.
Yeah.
And that's why you people come into place, and we need you to rate
Well, I think
and review
it's
the
especially
podcast.
hard to reach new people once you're farther into the podcast. So now that we have how many episodes? Almost 30.
Almost 30, yeah.
Now that we have that many episodes, I think you gain a lot of people at the beginning. And
yeah.
you can reach people in the beginning when you say it's a brand new podcast, and then you get a lot of like we had so many listens on our first few episodes, and I think once you're too far, I'm the same way. I'm guilty of it. If I look at a podcast, I'm like,
Yeah.
do I want to
But-
start listening to this now because there's so many episodes?
I think with a specific podcast we're doing, like with specific topics and stuff like that, it's the same when you listen to a podcast with specific guests on.
Yeah, like interview podcasts.
You usually pick the episodes you like, and
That's
I think
true.
that's the same with that podcast. You pick the episodes you are interested in, or
That's
the
true.
topics you're interested in. So I think that's the good, like the more episodes we gain, I think the more listeners we also have, because we have so many different topics, and we have a lot of people searching for specific topics.
Yeah.
That's why we want to like branch out a little bit, and because you might ask like, what is death has to do with relationship and stuff?
You could also not mock our audience.
Oh, sorry. I mean, we did a Black Lives Matter podcast.
But that also has to do
Our
with
episode,
relationships.
yeah, and I think we explained it multiple times before, but this podcast is not only about relationships between like partners or people who are together, but also about the human relationship,
Just relationship
and just
with humans. Yeah.
right, and also just the relationship with also yourself,
And yourself.
right? That's why we talked about anxiety and depression, and we had
And we've talked about how it's important to like love yourself and be
Right.
comfortable with yourself and
happiness.
Yeah.
We had a lovely guest on with breaking ups and how to deal with that, basically, or what he learned
if
from
you
it.
haven't listened to that episode, the lovely guest is my dad.
Yeah, and
you
also
should go
we
listen
had
to
Kim
it.
on. She talked about depression and
Mm-hmm.
mental health, specifically like dragging it from childhood into her adulthood. Yeah, we have a lot of interesting episodes that are not resolving or around relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So death. Let's talk about death.
Revolving is the word you're looking
Revolving, not resolving, right? Okay, let's talk about death. So I think it's pretty common and also to a certain extent normal to have a fear of death. I think for most people it's not the fear of dying necessarily, but it's
I
more
wouldn't even say most people. I would say it's super split probably.
right. It's probably super split. I think it's like a fear of dying, like the actual I don't want to die because it might hurt or it might be hurtful or painful and stuff like that. But also like what comes after, like the question of
Well, and
Like,
also, like, when am I going to die?
I
If you
mean,
think about
obviously.
it too long, it's like, what if I die super young? Or, like, for me, what if I die before I have kids? That's a huge one for me.
Yeah, sure.
Or what if I die when my kids are young? Or what if I die in childbirth? Like, what if I'm one of those people who, it's super rare nowadays, but what if I'm one of those cases?
Yeah. I mean, it's every day you walk out of the door, you might take a bus or a car or
Yeah.
the bicycle or even just walk, and you basically could die any moment by any given circumstance.
And there are some people who think about that every time they leave their house.
And that brings me to the first point, and we talked about that. You shouldn't worry about things that you necessarily can't change
That are out of
or
your
control, out of your
essentially.
control. Yeah. So obviously, sure, you should worry about when you get into the car. Okay, I might get hit by a car, I might get in an accident. Sure, I should buckle up and I should just be aware of my surroundings. That's the first thing. And it's a given. That's what you learn when you learn to drive. But that's essentially with everything. When you use something like drugs, for example, like medication, you obviously shouldn't use it in a way that can harm you. And it's the same with everything. I mean, we learn like at a really young age that we shouldn't run with a scissor or with a knife.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because it's dangerous and can basically lead to death. The same with like playing like an outlet, like sticking something into an outlet. But I think I mean, as you said in the beginning, we don't talk really about death because it's like this mysterious thing, and a lot of people have anxiety towards it, and a lot of people are like, I don't know, I don't want to think about it. It gives me anxiety. It makes me feel like unedgy. And also, it's also a sad topic because I think everyone has someone in their lives that they lost at some point. Hopefully not too young. But everyone knows that feeling to a certain extent of losing someone to death. And it's not a nice feeling. So sure, we are not prone to talk about it, which is funny because if you look at older people and when they gather, they only talk about death or something that hurts or people that died or
our
friends that
birthday
died.
was a great example because your grandparents came over, grandma, grandpa, and grandma. And it's always so interesting to me to just sit at the table with them and say nothing
Old
and
people.
just listen to them talk with each other because it's always the same. Like, what medication are you taking? Can you still hear? Do you have a hearing aid? This person died. Oh, I have pain here. I have pain there. It's just, that's the conversation. But that's the other thing that gives me anxiety. I don't want to do that when I'm old. I don't want to talk about that all the time.
I'm pretty sure it's a conscious choice, and they grew up a certain way. And they're not like, for example, I mean, they grew up in war times. They grew up in like poverty. They grew up in like in a destroyed country, at least in Europe, where they had no time to, like we just sat down and talked about our stuff, that we actually
reflect.
That's the word. So they had no time to just sit down and reflect on their choices, on their behaviors, on whatever they are doing. And also they had no like real choices what to do in life. You know, they were born into a certain situation and they took over like farms, they took over jobs, or they worked at like their jobs that their parents worked and stuff like that. So I think that's like it's a mixture of that, and also that they never learned how to do certain things that made them happier, you know? And obviously there are a lot of older people who can do that, but there are also a lot of older people who just are not able to do that, and when they come together.
But I think it's so interesting that that's the choice that you make to talk about those things, because life is not like it was when they were younger. Like, it's not like that now. And especially with your grandmother on your mom's side, she's so lovely and she's so happy and she is so like all about family and togetherness and helping each other. But like, why not talk about things like that? Why not talk about like a nice thing that you did the other day? You know,
I mean, she does too.
No, she does, but when they're together with old people, that's the majority of the conversation.
I think a big reason for that thing is also, I mean, sure, when you get old, you have a lot of things that hurt and that are bothering you. And also you obviously think more about death. That's
Sure,
just
and
a given.
I mean, I see it at...
The older you get, you think more about death. So.
I see it at work, too. I have patients who... I mean, most of my patients are old. And, like, between 60's not old, but they're between, like, 60 and 85.
Yeah.
And almost, I mean, guaranteed multiple times a day, patients will talk to me and talk about their pain and talk about... I mean, obviously, they're in a doctor's office, but still... It's their small talk with me as they talk about pain and they talk about it's so hard to go up the stairs and all of these things that are hard for them or who died recently.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me that's such a common thing to just casually talk about, because that doesn't sound like that doesn't interest me to talk about these things like in terms of like a casual way.
Yeah, I think, as I said, the older you get, you're just more confronted with that. Your friends die.
Sure.
You know people who
It's
die.
around you more frequently.
And the older you get, you also think about, okay, when I'm going to die. So
and
I think
the sad thing to me is that it probably gets a little desensitized, where like death itself, like people around you dying, it's probably really hard.
Yes, sure.
I mean, it's hard when you're young, and then it probably stays really hard, obviously, depending on who you lose. But I guess as you get older, when people in like your friend circle die, it gets less difficult to deal with emotionally.
Yeah, sure. I mean, sure. That's with everything.
But that also is kind of sad.
Sure, it's kind of sad.
These people that you're really close with, and then they're gone, and you're just kind of like, this is what happens.
It is definitely kind of sad, yeah. But at the same time, you can't be emotional the same 100 times, you can't just...
Sure, that's with anything.
That's with anything. So even though they might not show the same emotion, but they feel the same sadness, or they feel the same loss. But if the thing that bothers me more is like that we young people are, or most young people, not confronting death in a healthy way where they talk about it, or where they also confront it in a little bit, where they, I don't know, get used to the thought that you die at some point. That's a hard thing. Obviously, when you're a kid and when you're younger, you don't think about that stuff because you're indestructible and you fall from roofs and do shit where you never think about, okay, that could lead to like a really serious injury or death.
Yeah, you don't think about that when you're a kid.
And that's good. But at a certain age, I think it's good to at least address it sometimes, or a little bit.
Well, if you didn't, then nobody would make responsible choices ever. So
sure, but in a way where you maybe also address the fear that comes with it, or if you have one. Because I think, and we talked a little bit about this in the last podcast episode. Oh my God, I hate when I say that and you laugh.
The thing is, I said it and you didn't catch it. I said it earlier, like fluid, like just fluid, and didn't realize that I said it until after, and I
so stupid.
Was surprised you did.
So in the last episode, we talked about happiness, and we also talked about death, because I think that's the vital point of being happy, that you also at least accept death. Like get a sense of death and accept that at some point life is over. Because when you accept that point, you make it a conscious choice to enjoy life a little bit more.
But kind of on the other end of that, for me personally, I accept that. I that's never been an issue for me to accept that it happens, except because I've also experienced a lot of death in my life.
Yeah, sure.
But I accept that death is the end of life, and I accept that it's going to happen to me, but that doesn't change anything for me. That doesn't bring me comfort. That doesn't bring me more happiness. That doesn't bring me less fear or less anxiety about the things I have anxiety about.
But I think But I think you have a certain anxiety about a certain thing about death, which can be addressed. Let's go into your freaking out of death, but let's...
My freaking out.
Yeah, let's... or like
fear.
your fear about
My
death.
anxiety.
But let's take a break before that. And we are back from our break. And no, we didn't poop. So,
Talk for yourself.
Oh, you pooped?
Yeah, but I didn't leave the spot. I just...
Do you have a diaper on?
No. I have like a hole in my pants so it can just go out onto the couch.
Oh my God. Thank God the couch is white. So
So is my poop.
so like bird shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the topic. So what is your fear of dying or death?
So I don't have like I think some people or a lot of people have like the fear of will it hurt or is it going to be painful? I don't have that at all.
I mean, you have a little bit about like the thing getting stabbed.
Well,
right?
that's different. So I have a weird fear of being stabbed.
But that's kind of related to that, right?
So stupid. Not really. I mean, it's not about being. I mean, sure, if I would die from being stabbed, sure, that would suck. I think that would be the shittiest way to die. But I'm just talking in general. I don't want to be stabbed.
I mean, nobody wants to be stabbed.
I know, but for me, it's like such a random, like,
Yeah,
if
it's
we
really-
see it in a movie, I constantly go to, I never want that to happen to me.
She freaks out when she sees it in the movie.
I can't handle it.
I think I'm going to make a movie about stabbing.
No, but there's like,
Stabbing
there's like
the movie.
that scene in Zodiac with the
Yeah,
the couple in the park,
yeah.
and you see him stab them so many times. I feel nauseous.
I mean,
and sick
I
to
think
my
that's
stomach.
I think that's partly normal because especially if they do it in a realistic way where you
or if you know that it happened, because in that case it actually happened.
Yeah.
Not in, I mean, that
Yeah.
it was based on something that happened. But anyways, no, that sure, maybe that could play into it a little bit, but in that sense, yeah, sure, I'm scared of like the pain of that. But I think everyone is scared of pain in general. Like if something super painful would happen, obviously that's nothing you want. But in terms of death, I'm more panicky about if I start thinking about I can't comprehend. I physically cannot comprehend just not being here. I can't. When I think about that, I get super stressed and super freaked out because I think how can I feel everything that I feel right now? I feel myself breathing. I feel my lungs expanding. I feel my heart beating. I can move my fingers. I have conscious thought. How is that just gone?
But Danielle,
To be nothing.
30 years ago, you weren't here either.
Yeah, I'm aware, but 30 years ago, I didn't already have a life that I'm living.
Yeah.
That to me is the difference. Before I was born, I didn't know that. I mean, sure, and I know you're not going to know when you're dead.
Right, and that's the
But that
point.
brings me no comfort.
Really?
No, it brings me no comfort.
The thing is,
Because
you wouldn't. It's the same with going to sleep or like having a
Sure.
surgery or something like
But
that.
that scares me too. It scares me that you don't know that you're dead. You don't know that you don't have conscious thought
But
anymore.
maybe you know.
But that's okay. And this is the crazy thing. I don't want that either.
Yeah, what do you want?
No, because listen.
What
listen,
do you want?
Listen.
God is like, what do you want?
If I it's so weird. I don't want to. The
Die
thing is,
ever.
if I came back in a second life, like with the
Mm-hmm,
Buddhist theory, which I love,
Reincarnation.
I love that idea. But when I think about it, I wouldn't want to come back and have to live it all over again. That's what's so weird. That's
Start all
that's
over.
my pickle. That's my.
But you wouldn't know that you
I'm.
would do it.
You still.
Maybe you lived if that whole thing, the concept really is the thing.
Some people feel their past lives.
I know, but if that's a real thing, maybe we lived already, you know?
You sure?
Yeah.
And that this could be a second life, a fifth
Or
life,
maybe,
a
yeah,
20th
right.
life,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But I just as in my state now, I don't want to live a second life, but I also don't want to experience death. So it's like this
Right,
conundrum.
And those two things you will never know. Because at this time where you die
know.
and where you're dead, you don't
yeah,
know
I
any
know,
of
but
those
that
things.
doesn't bring me any comfort.
That's so funny.
No comfort. It gives me so much stress to think about just darkness and nothing and all of this
It's like
life
endless
that I've
sleep.
lived and all of this like the trauma that I've been through. What's it all for if you're just gonna
Danielle,
die and nothing's
we're doing
there?
the podcast right now. This is eternal. No, the thing is, I think a lot of people, like especially in the arts section and in like where you do something that you portray outwards, that you show the world, they do that because they also have this sense of I need to make something that endures the times that is here beyond my lifetime, that people will look back. And some people may, if you look at like Aristotle and or artists like Da Vinci and stuff like that, some people they did that, and people will talk about those people long in the future if we as a species survive. And that is kind of nice, but at the same time, those are a handful of people, and all the other millions who died in between are not talked about. And usually it's like, okay, 2 generations, 3 generations, people don't know who you were, and people forget about you, and that's fine too, because I don't necessarily know my grandparents. I mean, I have some vague memories of my great grandpa, but that's it.
Really, you have memories of him?
Yeah, I met him, and we have some pictures with him, and I remember where he lived and how it looked there and stuff like that. But that's it. I don't know what he did. I don't know what person he was, and that's fine, and that's totally fine. And that will be the same with us at some point. We will have kids, and then they will have kids, and
Macklemore has a great lyric about that.
Right.
He says, "I heard that you die twice. Once when they bury you in the grave, and once when the next time is the last time somebody mentions your name."
Yeah. And that's
a great lyric.
The thing is, that's fine with me. I'm not one of those people who wants to live on forever in like in some manifestation of my work or whatever.
But I mean, you have this kind of like peaceful thought about death.
Yeah, I have the complete opposite.
You think it's super comforting and peaceful to think about that it's just kind of like over and you don't know it and it's just done.
Yeah.
But what if, and I don't even want to say it because I feel like I'm going to jinx something and I don't have any wood to knock on. But
the thing is wood.
What is wood? This is wood. The wall. But like, what if you like say we have children and they're really young and something horrible happens and you die? Does that not scare you?
I mean, the thing is,
sorry,
sure, it scares me. And the thing is, hey, nobody wants to die young. Nobody wants to die in a horrible accident, plane crash, cancer, whatever, But first of all, it's out of your hand, and that's something I learned from anxiety and through my health anxiety, especially because with all those fear about dying of like this horrible disease, and in my case it was cancer, I learned that, again, worrying about things that you can control doesn't really
not worrying, but just if you think about the scenario.
No, because
it, like,
up to that point I will live the best life, and I will try to provide something after that if needed. If I would die there, I know that there is money, there's security up to a certain point, and I'm not just gone and there's nothing. And that gives me peace as well, and that's why money sometimes can be helpful up to a certain extent, where you know that if you die, if you're gone, that your family is at least for some years secure and nothing can happen to them.
Yeah, sure. But for me, it's like I think about if I, and please don't make a mean joke because I can already see you making a mean joke. But sometimes I think about like if I were to die, whether we had kids or not at that point, if I were to die young, I can't imagine.
You're not young anymore.
I can't imagine the grief that you would go through. Like, it breaks my heart to think about you grieving, and then sometimes I think he wouldn't grieve which I know is not true.
Celebrate good times, come on. Nah.
Which I know is not true, but in my head sometimes it's like he would probably move on really fast or whatever.
But Danielle, that's, first of all, you wouldn't know, and it doesn't really matter. And second, that's life, and at some point we won't die on the same day and the exact date,
not say.
Except we're in a plane
born
crash
on the same day,
right?
So maybe
but still,
die on the same day.
There's some things we can't change and some things we can't, control. And if we keep living our lives
like,
does
that make you like super sad?
Danielle, sure, it makes me sad, but I don't think about it because I can't control it. And if it happens, it happens, and I know that there's a support system in place that helps you or me through the time.
I just want to say this because it's kind of funny. My, this is one way you can know that I love you. Because when I
What? You love me?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
But when I brought up you dying, I checked my heart rate before on my watch, and it was at 70.
Mm-hmm.
And after I asked it, it spiked to 95.
Yeah. Nah, but I mean, well, like you mentioned the pain that some people have, like the fear of like having this immense pain and then dying. For me, for example, I have this, I mean, it's a fear of mine that I die suffering, like through a disease or whatever. But that, again, is also something that's not necessarily true anymore. I mean, there are a lot of ways where you, even if you have like the worst disease, there are a lot of ways they can reduce the suffering to a certain point where it's bearable and where you still feel and experience things where you're not just like, you know, brain dead and just laying there. Obviously, that's a thing too. But in the most cases, even though if you have a horrible disease, you can like suffer through it. Basically, it's not the worst pain. And the same with having an accident. And I've been there where something really, really big happens to you and something horrible. Your body is so fucking cool that it just shuts down everything that it needs to shut down, and you feel nothing.
Yeah.
And you feel nothing up to a certain point. And I was in that machine for over an hour, so I felt nothing basically the whole time. And I was there, and I was conscious, and I was in a totally fine state. So I think the fear of like having this massive hurtful death is something that we see in movies and also see sometimes in like the news and stuff like that. And it's horrible, but you don't feel anything.
But at the same time, this is not to make anyone out there like go crazy, but at the same time, I think there are some circumstances where that's not true. I think there are some circumstances.
I mean, sure, there are always
have to
exceptions. There are always exceptions.
Of course, my head goes back to stabbing, but
again, your body shuts down immediately. You don't feel that.
But that's not necessarily true. That's not always the case. If you're being stabbed over and over again, there have been cases, obviously, where people survive that, and they say they felt every single.
Sure, they felt every
single one, and it was super painful.
Sure. That's exceptions, sure. But in most cases, and that's why the human body is so amazing.
You go into shock.
It goes into shock and handles it well. It shuts down all the nerve endings that need to be shut down, and you don't feel anything. And it's the same with death. In most cases, you don't feel anything, and it's just this peaceful things. And hopefully, it's like this: you just drift away and you sleep, or in your sleep or after sex. That's my dream. Like I have the best sex, and then I roll over and it's like, God damn it, that's it, and then I die. Hopefully, super old.
So you're saying you would like to die naked next to me?
That reminds me.
And let me be there naked after really great sex, too. And then you die.
We die both, like hand in hand, naked after coitus.
See, I like that.
Yeah,
that'd be okay.
That reminds me of the one SNL skit where. When you die on the pooper, reading some, or like, you know, the toilet throws you back on the bed and like a really interesting read.
Because it's embarrassing to be found on the toilet or something when you die. So if you die on the toilet, then it launches you on the bed, and with like a really sophisticated book or something. Oh, he was reading in the bed. Yeah, we're holding hand right now because she likes the idea of dying after sex. So, when I'm old.
Yeah, when we're old.
Not like anytime soon.
But again, I mean, it's a big topic, and we obviously don't want to go super deep into it because it can be triggering for some people. But the main takeaway is I think there are a lot of good and healthy reasons to, first of all, address that death and talking about death. Not all the time, obviously, because what's the point? But at least getting rid of some of those, like, maybe hindering fears of happiness that like holds you back a little bit sometimes. I'm not saying like do every stupid stuff right now, but death is an essential part of life, and I think death makes life like worth living, right? If there would not be death, what's the point? So life is also gives us a purpose, basically. And
Well,
I think death gives us a purpose.
I think something interesting is that when I think about, I mean, for me, at least right now, at the age that I am and where I am in my life, I think a lot about dying when we have kids, like, and when they're young, things like that. That's like the more common fear for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or like during childbirth or whatever it might
Mm-hmm.
be. But the weird thing is, I've worked with kids for so long, and I used to be a nanny, and there was one family I worked with where they were really open with their kids about death, and the kids were really young, like 3 and
That's
6
what I
months.
want. That's what I want.
And the thing is, I want that too. And what's so weird to me is that I have these personal fears and anxieties about death, but I was so easily able to talk with the 3-year-old about death in a way that was like normal and just, you know, saying it how it is, basically, and being super open and honest about it, which didn't give me anxiety, which is, I think, so bizarre to me that, and I mean, I guess you can do that with almost anything. You can give people advice on things that you don't take your own advice on. I mean,
that's pretty common. But
I mean, I also want that for our kids. I want to be super open about it. Like when their pets die, I'm not going to say they went to a farm, which is the so stereotypical American thing to say.
I ran over the dog again.
Again?
Yes, again. All the people you love die. Ah!
You don't have to scare them.
That's Scary Movie free.
But
you know your teacher Brenda? Yes. She's dead.
But I mean, I want to be super open with our kids about that, and I want them to be comfortable with the idea that things die, and not to have like this kind of shut out view of like not even really knowing what death is, because there are a lot of, I've noticed it less here. I think in Austria, the kids that I've been around, most of them know what death is, or at least they talk about it. They have a concept of it. They don't quite understand it, but
no, but we don't. We usually don't do this. They went to a farm or anything like that. We obviously we do here. Like this. They went to heaven or something like that. You know, that concept of heaven is a thing because of religion. I don't think I'm going to
tell my kids that either.
I don't want it either. But that's something some people tell them. But that's it. There's nothing else. But what I want to say is that I think a big reason for like accepting death and also being content with the thought of dying at some point is, for me at least, that I have reached so much in my life already that I can look back to and be like super happy about and super like thankful and
proud of.
And so I don't have the feeling of I missed something, and I also don't have the feeling of like there is something I should have done. I mean, obviously different, sure, but that I missed.
I don't even think different, because otherwise it wouldn't be how it is now.
Right, but that, you know, that's something that I'm super looking back to, like regretful. You know, I have nothing that I look back to that I regret super big, and that's also a reason. If I would die tomorrow for whatever reason, knock on wood.
Knock again. You have to knock at least twice.
Then I would be fine with that, in the sense that I've reached so much in my life and I'm happy about that.
And see, for me, I wouldn't be at that. I am at the point where I don't regret anything, because I think obviously I've made mistakes in my life and I've accepted those mistakes and owned them. And that's important. But in terms of regret, I still think that everything happens for a reason. So
sure.
But so I also don't have that. But because, I mean, for me, it's all about kids.
No, sure.
But
I mean,
I've wanted to be a mom since I was like 4. And so it's like, if I don't have kids before I die, you know, that's just something that I would be.
I totally understand that. And that's,
if I were like on my deathbed before I had kids, I would be miserable.
Obviously, I mean, that's something, sure. If I would die, and if I would know, okay, I'm going to die in a few minutes or whatever, then sure, I would look in the future with like, okay, I've never experienced the joy of having a kid or grandkids or whatever, you know. That's obviously, it's a thing, sure. But I don't look at death like that.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of doing that? What's the point of, but I don't have that then, blah blah. Because first of all, you don't know if that would have happened anyways. That's why I try to look at, like, I look back what I accomplished, And was I a good human and did I try to be the best version and try to spread happiness and also like, I don't know, be like a good role model to others in the sense that I don't have regret about certain decisions in my life. Obviously you do, but not in the whole scheme of things that I'm a dull garbage person or something like that. And that's the comforting thing.
Yeah.
Sure, if I would look at it like you do, like with kids and stuff like that, sure, that would make me sad too. But I think that's normal.
I think so too. I think to end it, I wanted to
sing a song.
No, I wanted to give a little bit of a positive spin on death that inspired me recently. It's sad, but it's also inspiring that the actor Chadwick Boseman died recently and a few days ago. He was 43, I think. 43, yeah. And he died of colon cancer, stage 4 colon cancer, and it progressed within. He was diagnosed 4 years ago, and so it progressed really, really quickly to stage 4. All throughout that time, first of all, nobody knew that he had it, except obviously the people he worked with, but nobody knew.
No, not the people.
Yeah, because not everybody. But,
not everybody, yeah.
But the people he worked closely with, the actors he worked closely with.
Some, yeah.
Because he was doing chemo, sometimes on set. He was doing it while he was shooting a movie and in between movies. And he still
went to
was
public
such
speeches
an inspiration.
and
and did so many interviews and so many things and especially with Black Panther, I think that was the thing that he really,
especially for the Black
really
community,
inspired people with, because a lot of people said that wasn't, there was one woman who said this wasn't a Black movie. This was just a movie with superheroes and showing how communities come together and how everybody, it doesn't matter what color skin you have. It's just that movie really brought that. And to have such a powerful leader as and a loving and caring leader as he was in that movie. Yeah. It was really inspiring to a lot of people to have learned after he died, to have learned that throughout all of that, he was going through stage 4 colon cancer.
Chemos, treatments, operations.
Pretty fucking inspirational. And
especially it's funny because I looked at some of his, like the speech he did in Harvard, I think, and some interviews. If you listen to them again, it puts the whole thing in a different perspective. Yeah. And you can hear, if knowing that he had cancer and that you basically dealt with death every day, knowing that and listening to his words is so fucking amazing. Yeah. So if you have a fear of death, just revisit that. It's insane.
So I thought that was maybe a good thing to bring up in this episode point. Because I think it's pretty inspirational and pretty empowering.
It is empowering, yeah. Rest in peace. So yeah, that's it.
That is it.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
For sharing.
Maybe this brought you some comfort. I will be honest personally and say it did not bring me comfort.
But it's a good point. It's a good step towards.
My feelings are still exactly the same as they were.
But it's still, you talk about stuff that makes you uncomfortable, and that's a good step.
Well, and honestly, this is a big step for me because this is the most I've ever talked. I have to be 100%. This is the most I have ever talked about.
You have to look at it like as the poop thing. You know, when you came here, you didn't want to talk about poop in a second.
My heart has been racing this entire, but like I feel it.
Now you love to talk about poop, and that can be something, you know.
I'm never gonna love. No, to talk about
being
death.
being comfortable enough to, you know, without like being super anxious. But yeah, thanks for listening. Please share the podcast if you can, and if you will, we would really appreciate it. You can send us some messages on Anchor or on our email that is attached down, or you can just check out our Instagrams.
And also, since you're listening to this and you know that it was as we record this, it was our birthday yesterday. Yeah. But that would be like the sweetest birthday gift ever if a few of you left us a voice message on our Anchor.
Yeah, that's true. That would be cool.
And then we could play it on the podcast, and that would be not a happy birthday message. I mean, that too is nice, but just a message about the podcast, what you think about it, or I don't know.
That would be awesome.
That would be cool.
Anchor.fm/translating-love. and it's super easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.